Hello, Persian guy again. First of all, let me thank you for accepting my video response and for responding to me in courteous and logical, although I disagree with you, but for responding in such a courteous fashion. I appreciate that. I'm an atheist, and I wish that all atheists would follow that standard. Most of them do, but there's at least one prominent one who doesn't, so it's nice to see someone who's so courteous and thoughtful. Okay. Oh, reason for my mask? There are several reasons. Partly it's a shtick. It's an attention getter. So that's at least a major part of it. Another thing is it does kind of keep psychos from seeing my face. And believe me, there's at least one psycho fanboy that I have who would love nothing more than for me to take off the mask. Kind of strange. And it does give me the option should I choose to say something particularly controversial. It is a measure of protection. Plus, if you saw my face, you'd know I'd be doing you a huge favor by covering it up. Believe me, it's nothing to. It's not a pretty sight. Okay, let's get down to your points. First of all, your point about public safety. You mentioned that if someone who's been drinking gets into a car crash because they weren't picked up by a taxi, well, whose fault is it? It's the person who got drunk's fault. Yes, that's true. However, taxis are there for a purpose, and that is to ensure public safety. That includes more than just the drunk driver's safety. Last I checked, most drunk drivers either don't have the ability or the consideration to crash their cars only into trees or guardrails where no one's going to get hurt. You know, maybe you've heard of instances where cars crash into other cars. Cars crash into pedestrians. So, by allowing taxi cabs the option not to pick up drunk drivers, pick up drunk passengers, you're going to see 5-year-old girls, pregnant women, innocent children killed because of this. Maybe you're willing to sacrifice their lives so that these taxi drivers can satisfy their religious/cultural beliefs or their desires. Actually, again, I'm not even sure that this is required by the Quran. I'm under the impression, and I'm hoping that some Muslim who's knowledgeable, and by definition any Muslim is going to be far more knowledgeable in this area than I am, someone will comment. But it seems to me like if this was a requirement of the Quran, we would be seeing this happening in much more than just one city. I tend to think that it's more cultural heritage sort of thing than a religious sort of thing, or ignorance of what the Quran requires. But again, somebody who's knowledgeable, please correct me on that. You mentioned that this country has a history of being influenced by religion, and you cite that there are Bibles in the courtroom, and this is true. But that does not mean that one can discriminate based on religion. A witness does not have to swear in on a Bible. If you're an atheist, you're not required to swear on a Bible. Similarly, if you're a Muslim, you should be allowed to use a Quran if that's your preference. So yes, it's undeniably true that we do have a religious influence, but we are not allowed, especially a body sanctioned by the government, is not allowed to discriminate based on religious beliefs. Now, let's see. I never said that it was inevitable that taxi drivers would be discriminating against women who didn't wear burqas or hijabs. I didn't say it was inevitable. What I did say is once you allow, in principle, that once you allow this discrimination to occur in principle over, say, an issue such as alcohol, then you open the door to allow them to discriminate on other issues. And one of them could very well be discrimination based on whether one wears a hijab or not. It could very well be discrimination on whether one's bringing in a ham sandwich from the the takeout restaurant. Who knows? There have, as I put in a link in the article, been instances, I'm sure they're very rare, of discrimination against blind people who were using seeing eye dogs because they thought that the dogs were a dirty creature. And there has been at least one instance in the Minneapolis area of a discrimination against a transgendered person. Should they be allowed, based on their religion, to discriminate against gays? No, because they are there to serve the public. They don't have to like gays. They don't have to like transgendered people. That's not part of their job description. What their job description is, though, is to serve the public. Now, I never said that taxi drivers were trying to impose Sharia law on their followers and that on their clients, and that I didn't mean that they would be refusing to serve clients who didn't follow Sharia law. However, what I do say is that when Sharia law conflicts with U.S. law, then those who are serving the public need to follow U.S. law. In fact, in general, if there is a conflict, they need to follow the U.S. law. If they don't like it, they're welcome to leave the country, or they're welcome to try and change the laws. That's certainly within their rights. But they need to follow the U.S. law, and especially if they've been licensed by the government as part of their public service. The Constitution says that the government cannot discriminate based on religion. Oh, and I did not say that creeping Sharia was the only reason that Americans were worried about Muslims coming into the country. I never said that at all. I said it was a reason. There are other reasons, and so I do agree with you. I think the point that I'm trying to make is that once you allow people to discriminate against those who they will serve based on their own religious beliefs, then you open up a Pandora's box. And this is the same fundamental point, whether it's a taxi cab driver or someone who's a surgeon doing an operation. It's the same point, and I merely used the surgeon example as an extreme example of what could happen if you were to start to allow people to discriminate based on their religious beliefs. And what happens, say, if you get some weird cult or something like that, and they decide that they don't want it's against their religion to serve someone who wears blue, or someone who people who are over 5'8" tall. I mean, there could be all sorts of weird, wacky religions. Should we allow them to choose their passengers based on their own religious preference, belief? If you do that sort of thing, you get a situation where there's a chaos. We live in a multicultural environment, and so that may mean at times people who follow a religion, they may have to bend to fit in with society, and especially if they're going to be serving society as part of a government or quasi-government sponsored entity. That's all there is to it. Now, as to your point as to my claim that I said that creeping Sharia was why Americans feared Muslims, I certainly didn't mean that this was the only reason that Americans feared Muslims, but I do think that it is part of the reason why they do. So we may not agree entirely on the full reasons, but I will state for the record, I don't mean to say that this is the entire reason. Now, you make a very important point, and it's something that's really worthy of consideration, in that you said, I forget whether it's 600 or 800 cabbies or something like that. A huge number of the cabbies in Minneapolis are Muslims, and so to fire them all would create chaos. Okay, what we have here is an important distinction. One can agree on principle with me, and I'm hoping at least people will agree on principle with me, that there is a problem, that taxi cab drivers shouldn't be allowed to discriminate based on their preferences. They shouldn't be allowed to discriminate against the blind who use seeing eye dogs. They shouldn't be allowed to discriminate against people who are drinking alcohol, because innocent people will die. Not just the alcoholics. Innocent people will die because of this. Okay, once we recognize the problem, then it's a separate thing as to how we're going to go about solving the problem. Maybe you can hire enough people over a gradual period of time to replace the taxi cab drivers. You put out help wanted ads, and as new people apply, then you fire those who refuse to obey the laws requiring them to carry all passengers. Maybe you need to institute 2 taxi services, as you suggest, as a temporary measure until new taxi cabbies can be hired. Maybe the city needs to increase the taxi fare rates in order to attract more people. And with a bigger pool of people, then they'll be able to find cabbies who are willing to obey the laws and serve everybody. They're there to serve the public. So if it requires an increase in fare, then maybe that's what they need to do to get the job done. Whether this is a problem and how to go about solving the problem are 2 different issues. And I hope that people will recognize that, yes, this is a problem. This is a precedent of allowing discrimination based on religion that must not be allowed to stand. This has been the Masked Analyst, under and in.